From the 22nd to the 24th of August 2023, the country of South Africa held the 15th annual BRICS summit in Johannesburg. The head of states of over 30 countries attended the events. Considered to be one of the most powerful economical groupings of the world, with a combined GDP of over 25 trillion and the agenda to get away from the West control over the global population, and even plans to make their own currencies to destabilize the American dollar. And yet, not a lot of people talk about it. BRICS. Let's talk about it. So what is BRICS, Gaurav?
Okay, so BRICS is an organization that was founded in 2009. So it's an acronym that stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China. Later on, South Africa joined it in 2010. So that is what BRICS, that is when BRICS was formed. So this alliance has around 26.7% of world surface area, and they have a strategic alliance between these affiliated countries. Okay, so the main objective of this is to trade and development of infrastructures amongst the nations that are involved there, and political say and status in the world order, right? And also a multilateralism way of functioning the world between these. So okay, so by the start of 2024, 11 other nations will be joining BRICS. So the
total nations that have joined BRICS will be 11, right?
Yeah. So I mean, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Ethiopia, UAE, Egypt, and Argentina will be joining it. So altogether, it will be 11 nations.
Yeah.
So and then surprisingly, as of 2024, when these all nations will be joining BRICS, they will have around 41% of global oil production.
Oh my God!
So imagine that.
Yeah, almost half of the world production.
Imagine.
Huh?
And then these nations will also have 1/3 of world GDP. So currently they have 27% of GDP, but after that it will be higher, and almost at par with G7 nations. So it's similar to G7 nations, right?
Yeah.
All the Western G7 nations include all the Western
countries that have been like rich for ages.
According to 2022 Global World Population Survey, BRICS nation will incorporate 46.16% of global population in the world.
Oh my God. I have the world population.
So basically I think 10 years down the road it will be 50%.
But it's interesting that just 11 countries have half the world population. Okay.
Okay. Let's talk about how it started.
Yeah. So if we look back, then BRICS started. Basically, so in 2001, Goldman Sachs, if you guys know this company, it's a massive bank in America, and they conducted a research looking at the global economics and their potential in the world by 2050, right? So it was a 50-year survey that they were doing. And they coined the term BRICS, which included Brazil, Russia, India, and China. So these were countries that were expected to dominate the global economies by 2050. And what was the reason? Why did they think that these 4 countries, or 5 when South Africa joined later on, could be positioned favorably in the economical context by 2050? Some of the reasons were that, so if you look at Russia, is the largest country in the world. Then China is the 3rd, right? Brazil is the 5th. India is the 7th largest, and South Africa the 25th largest. And we have already said that this incorporated 26.7% of the world total landmass, right? So, okay, fine, that's fine, land masses and everything, but this led to these countries having abundance of natural resources present in their land masses, right? So that is really favorable for any country. Then the demograph of these countries are highly favorable in the sense that from 0 to 18 and 19 to 40, the demograph between that, these countries have the largest amount of people in that age range. So that means they will have workforce labor for a long period of time, right? So till 2050, we could estimate that these were some of these countries that will have workforce. They have natural abundance resources in their country, and they could be placed strategically by 2050, right? And the timing. So what does the timing entail? So after the Cold War ended, by 1995-1996, the world started becoming more globalized, right? So because of this, that means that all the countries in the world were exchanging goods, or importing, exporting, trading, and all that, and developing their infrastructure. So it was also a time of global commodities boom, right? The world was getting more richer and they wanted more commodities to buy. So the timing of that also really helped these countries really exponentially grow in terms of economics. And some of these countries that we have mentioned here are some of the top 5 nations in right now in the world with the best economies already. So India being 4th, China being 2nd or 3rd, Russia being 2nd, 3rd, like it's one of them. So stuff like that, right? Like, so it really, we can already see the impact what Goldman Sachs was trying to say back then, right? And what was the reason of the BRICS start? Like the best reason. So in 2001, Goldman Sachs just coined the term BRIC, right? Like incorporating these 5 countries being some of the best placed in terms of economic status. But in 2008, when the global financial crisis hit the world, all these countries were like, okay, so because there was a housing bubble and other resources, other reasons as well, other factors that led to the global financial crisis, but these 5 countries were like, okay, so we are going to be favorably placed within the next 40 to 50 years to be very good economies, right? So we should combine together so that we can step outside the American dollar and American economical shadows given the globalization scenario, and we can kind of stabilize our own economy, kind of help each other out in these kind of situations, right? And so wanting a stable economic situation, the BRICS nation were formed. So now they formally in 2009 signed a treaty saying that like these 4 nations, because South Africa joined in 2010, will help each other out in terms of economics and like trading, building infrastructure and helping each other out in other terms as well, whether it be political or whatever, right? And that's how by 2010 they had 5 members being we've already mentioned, and that's how BRICS was officially formed, right? So why are we talking about BRICS now? One of the reasons why we are talking about BRICS now is because just recently in August 22nd to 24th, like we mentioned, they had the 15th annual BRICS summit, right? And in 2022, this was the main catalyst that really pushed this 15th BRICS summit to be what it is today, like a massive deal, right? In 2022, Russia attacked Ukraine, right? And America and the West sanctioned Russia heavily. These countries that are involved in the BRICS, they were really taken aback because it was kind of like weaponizing the dollar to get their way, right? So they were like, okay, so now in this 15th alliance meeting that we have, we are going to increase the amount of countries we have, and also we are really going to take the BRICS thing seriously and start executing on the promises that we started to make from 2009-10 onwards. Right? So what are some of the objectives of BRICS? Gaurav, please enlighten us.
Yes, sure, I'll do. So the main objective is basically to promote economic cooperation among its members, right? Because each country associated in BRICS is a major player in the global stage. They're coming together to form an alliance with the aim of enhancing their individual and collective influence in the world. So that is their main objective. Also, trade, investment in infrastructures, and technology sharing. So additionally, BRICS seeks to...
Just a short point in terms of technology sharing, right? China is not allowed to produce any sort of microchips that can be used in telecoms and all that, like telephones and all that, right? So it really struggles in terms of that. But if these nations support China, then it will not only be able to produce it, but also sell it to other like suppliers, right? So these are some of the kind of things that we are talking about.
Also because we know China's potential in supplying and producing and supplying to the global market, right? So I think that's going to be a very huge boost to Chinese economy as well. So additionally, BRICS seeks to reform global financial institutions like IMF and World Bank to better represent the interest of developing nation. Because so far, I mean, if there's an issue and everything, it is IMF and the World Bank that takes all the economic decisions in their hand. Now they want to get away from this, and then they want to have their own, institution which can deal with all these problems. Also, so for that reason, they had established a new development bank, which functions outside of IMF and World Bank. So this NDP, New Development Bank, provides financing for infrastructures and sustainable development projects to the member countries of BRICS, and other emerging economies, right? So it's a clear example of how BRICS is shaping the international financial landscape as well.
And it's not an uncommon thing, right? Like we have seen other financial institutions like ADB, Asian Development Bank, that functions outside the IMF and global, what was the World Bank?
World Bank.
Right? So that means that it's not an uncommon thing. So that's why it's easy for them to set up a completely different financial institution that supports just these nations, right?
Yeah, and also one important objective of this is, they also want to have a political say in their world politics. I mean, yeah, because currently I think it is. I heard that even UN is dominated by USA's like decisions and all of these things.
It's claimed, right?
Yeah, it is claimed.
It's claimed that like US has a massive say in the UN
say in these decisions, and I think that's what they're tired of. So that is one of the main objectives of BRICS as well, and they want to destabilize the Western influence of the world and reduce the value of dollar. So basically, because 90% of the trade is being done by dollar, right? So I think that their main objective is, one of the main objectives is also to reduce the dominance in dollars as well.
So we have mentioned this before as well, that like just recently India signed a massive deal with Saudi Arabia in which they are going to be trading in Indian rupees. Right? And then in terms of Brazil has been very outspoken in saying that they do not want to trade in American dollars.
Yeah.
Right? So there are nations and countries that do not want to be tied with the American dollar. And like we said, one of the major reasons being the sanctions that America and the Western world utilized to really cripple Russia. Over how much was the number that the Russian money has been frozen in America?
I think it was around
300
billion or something like that. Yeah, that was frozen.
Right? So also, massive amount.
Yeah. So okay. Also during this COVID time, and then this the crisis that we are going through, Russia and India, that they made a pact that all the oil reserve will be bought in Indian rupees. So basically that was one of the main reason why India's economy is doing
great.
At least not falling down, right? Because of that as well. Yeah, so these are some of the objectives of BRICS.
But BRICS is also facing challenges.
Yeah.
Right. There are tons of challenges that BRICS faces. And one of the most pressing challenges that it faces is that they have divergent interests, right? So all these countries, though they have signed agendas and agreements that they are going to help each other, China and India do not have the best of relationships. Right, and we also know that Brazil is very, very far off, right, and its interest is very we don't know whether its interest aligned with China's, Russia's, India's, right? So there are very different kind of political agendas and political parties and countries with different cultures and all that are in this. So there are going to be some very divergent interests and priorities of these member nations, right? That's one. These countries also, like I said, have different foreign policies and goals as well, right? So their involvement with other countries and treaties that they have signed is very different, right? So they have to play along with that as well, because they do not want to destabilize everything that they have in the world, right?
I think it will also be tougher for them to destabilize everything in the world. I mean, the BRICS started back in 2009, right? And it's already 2023. So what have they done so far? I mean, yes, this Russia incident happened, and Putin was, he had global arrest warrant or something like that, and now they are trying to act that this is a serious concern, and that they want BRICS to start working. But so far, we haven't seen anything major happen, things happened.
I think this 15th summit was one of the more significant milestones in terms of the seriousness that we saw and the commitment from the countries that were involved, and then also increase in the numbers of countries. So I think that we can see there is some urgency now, rather than when we saw in 2015 or 16, BRICS summit was not that big of a deal.
Also, I mean, they have challenges, right? See, all the countries like India and China, they're one of the major, biggest economy and population country in the world. They're fighting with each other. I mean, yes, they are united for BRICS event and everything, but when they are not, I mean, they are fighting a war within them.
I think the idea is that the enemy is of my enemy is my friend. Right? So basically that's what the Western world seems to be, the enemy of these states that are involved. And then they are saying that because we are enemies of the Western world, let's all hold hands and work together. Right? So I think that's the concept. But of course there will be challenges. But what do you think about some of the futures about BRICS? Do you think it will sustain? What do you think?
I mean, Well, these countries will continue to play, I think, a significant role in shaping the global landscape because, I mean, number one reason they are growing economy, right? India, China, all these, both of them, they're growing economy. In terms of population as well, they are growing every day, right? So I think because of that, I think they can take an advantage. Also reaffirm their commitment to multilateralism and find innovative ways to address global issues collectively. So I think that is one of the, that can be done as well. Like they can be united in taking any like major decisions.
Multilateralism basically meaning that like even though we have different cultures and different ideas and all that, not one country will rule everything, but like we'll have a kind of
unity kind of thing,
right, for everyone to function and then keep their culture and beliefs and still function as a member of BRICS, right?
Yeah. And the world is evolving rapidly, and BRICS will be at the center of it to play it around. And also, it is predicted that by 2050, BRICS nations will be like global economy. Yeah. So that's what their motive is. So the future looks.
That then, BRICS is going to be a prominent player then. So you think so? Okay. So now these are all like the research and all that. What are some of your personal thoughts on BRICS, and what do you think its impact is going to be in the global economy?
I think obviously there will be some impact in the global economy, but I don't think that like it will be as successful as how they are making it sound. It might be successful because I mean all the Western countries are one of the biggest importers of the things that these countries produce, right? That's what I think. I mean, Chinese.
So in that terms, like my thought process in that is, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but my thought process in terms of that is that like the products that will be produced by these nations, especially the 11 nations now that we are talking about, some of these are within the top 25 nations to have the biggest like population, right? And these nations are going to be very highly labor inducive. We've already seen this in China and in South Africa, even Ethiopia and all this, right? So that means the cost at which the products will be made will be so much more lower than what the West can produce on its own, that I think that people will be inclined. So for example, if your iPhone costs around like now, right now if it's like $999, if the West world produces it on its own, it might be 2,000 or something, right? But the iPhone that will be produced or a equivalent or a competitor to that will be produced by the BRICS nation, it might still be $999 or even less. So that means that the Western world would be like, oh god damn it.
But then if it's if it's not able to sell to the Western world, then the price of the profit margin of these phones, for example, whatever the product is, might not be that much.
But your assumption is that the Western world is the only nations that consume these things, right?
But my assumption is major of
no. So imagine if the phones and like all the commodities are cheap enough that even like the underdeveloped nations can afford it. Then we don't need the Western world, right? Like that's what BRICS is saying. We can produce it at such a lower rate that every common man can have our phones, or like every common man can have our products and all that, right? So I think, in my terms, I think it's a good thing that there will be multiple places that any developing or underdeveloped nation can go to in terms of help and wanting infrastructural upgrade and all that, right? Like because we've always talked about this, competition breeds innovation, right? So if there is a healthy level of competition, I hope this doesn't deteriorate and then like it leads into a world war or something like that. But if there is a healthy level of competition, I think it would be in the benefit of the whole world.
Yeah, right? I think, and one of the major things that will happen is now the Western world will not be just making the decision by themselves, like now they have, we have BRICS as well. So they will be, no matter what, they have to take that into consideration as well. Like, they can just simply make, any decisions, for example, freezing Russia's account and everything. Yes, but
I mean, there are reasons for it, right? Like why they froze their accounts, but they're still human beings living in Russia, who are going to suffer. So in that terms, we understand why the sanctions were made as well, but we also understand the negative impact of having these sanctions as well. So anything else you want to add to the BRICS topic?
I don't think there's much to add at the moment because
we still have to wait and see.
We still have to wait maybe a few more years to see what BRICS can do. But I mean, also the thing is with all these big things, during the time of summit and everything, they're everyone is energetic and we'll talk about this. Once it's done, it's old news and they just move on. But let's see. We'll see.
All right. Still yet to see. So that's pretty much it on the BRICS front, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!